Hi everybody, and welcome to retirementinasia.com. Today I'm going to talk about our recent travels around Europe. We went around Europe to see if we could live in Europe as cheap as we could live in Thailand. And we went through France, Spain and Portugal. Now France was the most expensive and Portugal and Spain were very close, but Portugal was I'd say was the cheapest. But looking at Asia and looking at Europe, I would still say that Asia was cheaper to live than Europe. But you've got to weigh up the pros and cons. If you move to Europe, you've got good infrastructure, you've got good internet. Most of the time the English is very good, especially in Portugal. Not so much in France because they do learn English, but some of them choose not to speak English, and it can be a bit of a pain in some of the restaurants and trying to get things done. Now the euro, it depends which country you're coming from. So if you in euros in Europe compared to the American dollar or the Canadian dollar, the exchange rate is poor. It's €1.5 to every dollar. So that means for €3 you basically it's $2. Is that right? No, for $1 it's €1.5, so $2 would be three euros to a dollar at the current exchange rate, I think it is. Well, so that puts the cost up. Fuel is quite expensive, I noticed when we were driving round. We kept away from most of the motorways other than in Portugal, because Portugal has the cheapest motorway network, and Spain's not too bad. It's only when you get up into France that it's very expensive to use the toll roads, and fuel's quite a bit more expensive. I think it was like 20 cents a euro cheaper in Spain and about the same in Portugal than in France. I can't remember what the price is offhand, but I can look into it a bit later on. So the other thing was cost of food eating out. Now when we go out in Thailand, it depends, of course, it depends on what you're eating as well. Usually if we have a bowl of noodle soup, it's 50 baht, or if we go for seafood, for the two of us, let's say 1,000 baht, what's about 35 Canadian, give or take a few. And drinking is so cheap in Thailand because of the tax anyway. But in Europe, a meal for two was running us around 70 Canadian. In the restaurants, and some of them weren't that posh of a restaurant. So it is expensive to eat out. Now you can't really tell. The way we did it, travelling around France, Spain and Portugal, really isn't a good point to get your information from, because as you know, when you go somewhere on a vacation or you're travelling, you tend to eat more in the restaurants. You know, you stay in expensive hotels, and you know, you pay extra for the fuel and the car rental and everything. So it's not really a true view of the cost of living in them countries. So what we are thinking about doing is, at a later stage, is go back and stay somewhere for a month where we can rent an apartment and buy the food and that from the supermarkets to do a proper comparison compared to Thailand. But roughly, I think Asia is a lot cheaper than Europe. Now the big thing is with Europe as well, is how easy is it to move there and become a resident using the Schengen visa, or if you wanted to take your Thai wife or Malaysian wife or Singaporean wife back to the UK, you could use Europe if you haven't got the income, or you haven't got the amount of money in savings. You can use Europe as a stepping stone to get into the UK if that's what you wanted. You just have to live in a European country for 6 months, and then you can apply for the travel visa, then you can go live in the UK. But really I'm not that interested in living back in the UK. It's just gone too expensive compared to other places. It's very expensive, and I've got to say Europe is still cheaper and is cheaper than the UK is. So looking around, and you'll see some of the videos come later on this week. I'm hoping to get some video editing done. It's been a bit rough at the moment because we are moving house. We're downsizing to a smaller house for a lower foot cost, and then we got to decide where we want to move to. Now, to me, at the moment, because of the weather and my medical issues with my back, Thailand is probably the better. Thailand, Malaysia is probably the better choice for me because it's more of a constant heat. The only thing, Malaysia can be a bit chilly down to the 20s when it's raining heavy, and it depends how long the prolonged rain's for. Because anybody knows, being in Asia, the rain, when it comes, it comes. But the good thing is, between Asia and Canada, I wouldn't have to suffer the -50 temperatures like it is in Calgary. So there's a fly going around, it's annoying me. The -50 temperature in Calgary, and the 6 to 7 months of winter here, because it roughly starts end of September when it begins to get the first frost. September, the first snow can be in October. Even in September you can still have snow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to edit the videos of our trip around Europe and show you the sights and the sights that we saw. Now, I must admit, Europe is a prettier place than Thailand, other than the beaches, but the cities and everything, because you got the history behind the buildings, was really nice. Amsterdam itself is beautiful, but Amsterdam is very expensive to go and live. I don't think I could afford Amsterdam. The rental alone for the condos was over $1,000 per condo per month, so it was quite expensive. Now, when we travelled around France, Spain and Portugal, we stayed at Airbnb. Some of them really good Airbnb, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the links up on a later video with the places where we stayed if you're travelling around them areas. So we dropped down from Toulouse, we went up to Brest, and then from Brest we went down towards Bordeaux and then across into Spain, and then we went to Santander, and then Santiago, sorry about that, and then we dropped then into Portugal at Fatima, at the church there, the big cathedral, and then we went down to Leiria and then to Porto. So I liked Porto. Porto was really nice and picturesque, but it was a bit, that's a bit expensive as well. But like I say, you can't really do a comparison until you've lived somewhere for a month and you live like you would do if it was your house. So you go to the supermarket, you only eat out once, maybe twice a month or something like that. And the good thing about Europe is the road structure. If you wanted to drive, like I love driving, so that was one of the things about Thailand, as I wouldn't like to drive a car in Thailand. Now, Malaysia, I've never had an issue, and in UK and Europe, I've never had any issues driving. You know, the good road structures, the well signposted. But Thailand is a different story, like everybody knows. Now, we didn't really find out the cost of taxis or public transport. We did go on a train in Porto down to the town centre itself when we were walking round by the river there, and we had a meal, and that meal was, it's €100, so I think it's about $150 for two, so it's not cheap, Porto. But that's where the tourism area was, so if you move out of the tourism area, I think it would be cheaper to eat and to live. So around, if you come out of Porto about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I think the cost of rentals and food going out to eat would be a lot better. We met some good people along our journeys from the Airbnb site, and most of them were very helpful, really helpful. The lady in France, was it France? In Spain, I think. I'm not sure if it's France or Spain now. It was like an old farmhouse, and she bought us eggs for breakfast. She couldn't do enough for us, and this is the mother of the man who was renting it out, and she was really friendly. Lourdes in France was expensive. Even the Airbnb was a bit on the expensive side. I think most of them the accommodation we paid on Airbnb, because we had a house to ourselves. We didn't go for a private room, we went for the full house, and that was mostly around $100 a night. We only stayed 2 nights at a hotel in Europe. One was on the way to Brest and one was at Santander, and I'll go through the cost of that and let you know what it was. But it was expensive, because you're paying like €100 or €120 in one of them, and it was quite nearly $200. It did surprise me, and it really wasn't that good of an hotel. But when you're tired and you need to rest, that's the only thing you can do. So, like I said, so mainly we bought a cell phone chip in France from Orange, and that kept us going around Europe. And then when we were in the UK, we bought another cell phone chip because we ran out of credit on the Orange one, and I couldn't top it up in the UK for some reason. I couldn't find anywhere where they topped it up. Israel was another place that we went to visit the Holy Land, and Israel, for a 5-night stay in a hotel, it was nearly $1,000. So Israel itself is very expensive, even compared to Europe. It's probably double the price of things in Europe. But then again, it's a tourist area. Again, everybody's going to visit the Holy Land, to Jesus and to the churches, and that's why we went, to see if we can get a cure for my back. So that's all I'm going to say today. So in the next few weeks, as long as I can get sorted, we're going to have videos from our trip, starting from the UK. We had 1 night in the UK before we went to Toulouse, and then from Toulouse to Brest, Brest to Spain, Spain to Portugal, and then Portugal to Lourdes in France. And then after Lourdes in France, I'll do some of the video for Israel if people are interested in the sites of the Holy Land, and then some in the UK. But I didn't really do much filming in the UK because I've done it before and not really much changed. But I'll look into it. So that's all now from retirementinasia.com. I hope you will click on like and click on subscribe, and more to come. And towards the end of this year, I think it's going to be around November, we'll be back in Malaysia and Thailand. So you're having some more good footage coming from the countries. So for now, bye.